Mira Business FM. The sound of success.
This is Mira Business FM. Welcome to the morning drive just before the National Day weekend. And we're going to be looking in a few moments' time, rising bills, higher rents, the real price of daily life in the UAE. That's our next topic. If you're with us on the website, mirabusiness.fm, welcome. If you're with us on social media, welcome. Maybe on YouTube, you can get in touch with us. And it's important today because I think what we're going to do is take an approach, kind of a case study based discussion approach to this. So if you have a question for our next guest, if you're watching or listening on the live stream right now, we'll address any questions you might have when it comes to the real price of daily life here in the UAE. So how do you do that? info@mira.fm or whatsapp.mira.fm to get the WhatsApp number up, get the dialogue box up. Now, this morning, diving into a question almost everyone in the UAE has asked themselves at some point: how much do I actually need to live here? Now, to help us break it down, we're joined by Michele Carby, who is a financial expert. She's an international wealth strategist who advises clients on cost of living planning, budgeting, financial security, personal finance, long-term wealth, etc. Michele, that's a long list of things. Welcome back.
Thanks, Tim. So nice to be back with you.
Nice to have you here. Last time you were here, I should jump in here. Just very quickly, we need to kind of mention it because you were here talking about the upcoming budget, and there were those fears of the exit tax being introduced for wealthy people in the United Kingdom. The speculation is always, where are they going to go? Maybe they're going to end up in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, the Emirates, this part of the world. I guess it's something that's still being studied. It didn't come into effect in the UK budget. It's not massively relevant to many of us here now that it's not happened. But it's worth talking about. Size of relief, I suppose. Less millionaires making their way to Dubai is probably the upshot at the moment.
Well, I don't know, Tim. I think the people that wanted to leave because of the fear of increased taxation perhaps have already left. So you're not going to see the exodus or the stampede to the exit post-budget. I think that's already happened. There'll obviously be all eyes on the spring statement. That's still coming, of course. And I think everybody right now is calculating the cost of the new budget and the difference that it's going to make to them and their families in their daily life. Because, of course, personal allowances have been capped. Those haven't increased. There's going to therefore be that many more people paying tax that weren't paying tax before, because obviously annual wages increase with inflation, but because the annual allowance hasn't crept up and is going to be capped, rather you're going to find that many more people being affected by the tax take. And though, Rachel Reeves has a big hole to fill, so it's very important to get as much money into, the government PLC that they possibly can. And that's what's being spoken about so much right now is the significant amount of income tax that is going to be paid to the government.
It is, and we'll just watch the spring statement. Hopefully you'll come back and join us for that as well, and a bit more regularly too, it has to be said. So let's talk about the cost of living, and this is a really kind of different discussion to obviously the first time you were here. Opportunities abound. The Emirates is more popular than ever. I think that's fair to say. But we all need to work to a budget in somewhere, at least most of us do. Rising rents, higher grocery bills, school fees go up regularly. Of course, insurance costs, transport, day-to-day spending. Cost of living in the UAE is it's shifted noticeably over the past few years. I think most of us would agree with that. Whether you're single, a professional, a young couple, family of five, whatever it is, financial realities all look very different. So how do you plan? What should you be budgeting for? And how much does it really take to not just survive, but to be actually financially stable in the UAE? It's a really difficult question to answer. There's a lot in there.
There's a lot in there. I was going to say that's about 25 questions.
I know, and I do that on purpose because overall, I think if you take an overview of that, and it's almost that you don't answer the question, but you make a conclusion from that, and that's where we kind of launch from. That's like a springboard.
Of course. And I think dovetailing into what you just said there at the end, Tim, is really significant. And it really brings the power of getting advice and sitting down with somebody, an expert like myself or somebody in our industry, before you make the move.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't, you see a lot of keyboard warriors take to Facebook, and similar platforms are available to say, how do I, budget? What do I need to earn? And they get, the length of breadth of other people's experience. But I think to be able to get it right for yourself, it should be all about you, your personal circumstances. What are your key objectives? Why are you thinking of moving? Those out there in social media are not thinking about you, but rather talking about themselves or their own personal experiences. So getting something designed bespoke holistically for you and your family, and then making an informed decision about, am I making the right choice? Is this going to improve my circumstances? If your objective is safety, savings, building up your financial security, how do you achieve all of that? What is the job you're coming to? What does that look like? What is your expenses going to look like? How can we fit this into your budget? So that you come to Dubai with that budgeting mentality in mind before you set foot on terra firma Dubai, so that you realistically go into it with your eyes wide open. You don't make, the 101 mistakes that other people make every single day. And you get the best of your Dubai experience.
It's important that you say that, because, and I was hoping you go in that direction, because what people want in these kinds of conversations is really kind of personal, tailored advice, and it's really hard to do that because everybody's circumstance is different. You may have 4 kids, 3 kids, no kids. Somebody sick in the family, not. You may earn X. It's really difficult to zero in. So I don't want to ask you like $1 million questions. And that's kind of the reason for throwing it open today. So to anybody listening or watching at the moment, info@mira.fm or whatsapp.mira.fm is the way to get in touch. If you want the number, 522-789-567 is the number. You don't have to remember that, of course, because I don't want to kind of sit and say to you, how much do you realistically have to have? What do you need to live in the UAE to? Because it's so different. Couple of questions coming in, and I had a feeling we'd get some questions in for this for you. This is from a lady called Linda. We are a mid-career family with 2 primary age children. We're debating between, here we go, renting a larger, high-quality 3-bedroom apartment in a neighbouring emirate, Sharjah, or a smaller, older 2-bedroom in Dubai. So 2 children. Help us decide if the cheaper rent is a false economy. What would you advise?
Tough question.
It is. That's
It
really
is,
difficult.
because
Yeah.
there are a number of factors at play. But if we just go with the facts that have been shared, because generally I'd ask a lot more questions, but where are you going to be working? That is a very important consideration.
What's the commute like?
What is the commute like?
Yeah.
You've got to factor in the increased cost of motoring, because Salik is a daily reality for those using any of the motorways. You have to factor in the cost of parking. You've got to factor in the fuel cost, maintenance cost, time cost. There is a value to your time. How do you feel about spending, a longer commute drive? Does that work for you? How is your support system? You've mentioned you have 2 children. So how's all that going to work? Where is your children's school going to be located? Because you need to be able to make that, drop off and pick up seamlessly for your children. And so living in a different emirate, for example, might not work with your personal circumstances. It might be okay for a short while, while the novelty is there, but when the novelty wears off in the full picture, then you're going to think, oh, I made the wrong decision. And then it's too late. You've got to see out the year and do all of that stuff. So it's really just important to understand the location of the school, the location of your employment, and then decide, where to live.
There's also another side to this as well. If you have two kids and they're of a similar age, is it okay to have them in the same room? You and your partner, your husband and wife, have the other room, I suppose. Do they need to be near their friends? There's an awful lot that's kind of a what's best for the family unit type question rather than a financial question in a way, isn't it?
Of course, because it's all about circumstances.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So, Linda, I don't know if that helps you, but hopefully it might a bit. Ahmed, are buy now, pay later schemes and low interest loans truly a tool for managing expenses, or are they a hidden cost that ultimately encourages unnecessary spending and debt?
I agree.
What do you agree with?
The
Hidden
last
cost.
part.
I had the
Yes,
feeling you were
the last part of the question. Thank you, Ahmed. Definitely a recipe for disaster.
Okay.
We've seen it time and time again, where people are tempted, in that buy now, pay later mentality. You're just kicking the ball down the road.
Yep.
And it's a problem I'll address at some given point in the future. And it gives you a false sense of economy, because in a previous, life, you would have said, I have a budget for one dress and I'm going to the mall to buy that one dress. But with the buy now, pay later, you suddenly have an unlimited budget. And instead of one dress, you potentially could buy 5 dresses and pay for them on the never, never. And it gives you that opportunity to have more. So instant gratification.
But that's us these days, isn't it?
It is. But the discipline needs to be there, Tim, where you need to think about, I just need one dress, I don't need 5. And, kicking the can down the road in terms of, I'll pay for it later, or on the never, never, or on the bonus I think I might be receiving, or additional cash I might have in the future. You can't build your life on ifs and buts and maybes. You've got to think in a disciplined, structured way.
Good answer. Ahmed, there you go. That's what we think here. I'm going to buy, says Caesar, an iPhone for about 5,000. 5,000 dirhams is a lot of money for a phone.
It is.
So it is. Anyway, I'm going to buy this iPhone for 5,000 dirhams. Is it smarter to use a personal bank loan or a credit card's 0% interest period? Which option is truly cheaper in the long run? I'm going to hazard a guess here that your answer may be, if you have to borrow money to buy a phone, don't buy the phone. I had a feeling it was going to be that. But this is the thing, right? A lot of people, you see this a lot. There's a new gadget, and I love gadgets as much as anybody, but I was the guy for a while, and it was new phone every year. Oh, I'm so excited. I've lost interest now, I think, and I buy my phone when the other one breaks, or I trade it in. Borrowing money to buy a phone doesn't seem the best thing to do.
No, it definitely doesn't. I agree with you, Tim.
Yeah.
And you hit on a very valid point there. You have the opportunity of trading your phone in. So do that, which will obviously reduce the cost of borrowing. There are some other options, some other discounts or opportunities out there. Why buy new? You could potentially get a reconditioned phone. You don't have to necessarily have the very latest model, many other models to a similar job. It just perhaps is not the brand that you're coveting with an iPhone. But it's a tough one, right? Because I understand, needs and wants, and that's why you go to work every day. You're aspirational. I understand all of that, and it's very frustrating to say no to yourself. But there are other considerations. So trade in your old phone. Look at perhaps a reconditioned model instead. You don't necessarily have to have a new one.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? If you really want something, and I think this is the thing with people that offer financial advice, and I think it's a little bit unfair, so I'm going to take your side for a minute. Financial advice isn't about saying you can't have that. Financial advice is about saying be sensible about the things that you want in order that you can acquire them. You're not saying to anybody you shouldn't have X, the latest iPhone is the example here. It's whether you can feasibly afford it.
Absolutely.
And can I get you to the point where you can? That's your thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And think of other strategies. Is there a way that you can save the money over 3 months and then buy it with savings?
Yeah.
Or, like I mentioned before, can you not buy a reconditioned one because it'll probably be 2/3 of the price of a new one? So you could still achieve the same outcome, just a different way.
The other side as well is with, we're kind of quite disposable by nature and we all want the latest gadget. People buy a gadget, sell it on in 6 months, not having much use, it loses a load of value, so you're going to get a pretty decent gadget from somebody that's moved on to the next thing anyway. So,
Absolutely.
It's the car thing, isn't it, as well? You can get great car deals here. Anyway, we're off topic. Let's go to another question. I've got a couple more to give you, to offer you here. No name on this one. I have debt from an app. I don't know what app. It's 3,000, I guess that's 3,000 dirhams is the debt from this app. I'm stressed because I don't earn that much in a month. What advice can you give on how to budget so I can pay?
Well, what I would suggest is speak to the app provider, the company, whoever, because a lot of them do have other opportunities and creative ways in which to repay. I definitely say close the account so there's no more temptation to pay or spend on it, and then work with the company on a repayment structure.
Yeah.
What are they willing to accept on a monthly basis? Don't bury your head in the sand. That's the absolute worst thing that you can do, where you run away from the problem rather than trying to deal with the problem. A lot of these companies have debt solutions, debt help, debt structuring that they can offer you advice. They can restructure it perhaps over a longer time to make the payments more affordable. But the point of advice for that particular person is speak to them. Don't run away from the problem, break it down, and you obviously need to become a little bit more disciplined so you don't fall into this trap again.
Okay, good advice, I think. Let me ask you a couple of questions that I'd kind of planned to ask you, and we'll go back to the text in a minute. In fact, there was one thing, just let me bring this up for you. I think it was Ricky, who's not taking this massively seriously. What's the best way to get rich before my comedy career starts paying in 2037? So there was another thing for you just to think about, Michele. Look, we live in a city. Dubai is a very progressive city. It's an expensive city to live in. It's not cheap to live in Dubai. It's not cheap to live in Abu Dhabi. The UAE, cost of living is high. But what is it that's driving costs up? We've seen rents, groceries, services all push upwards. So what are the big cost drivers right now that make it higher to live?
Tim, it's supply and demand.
Okay.
That really encapsulates a lot of that issue that people are facing today. We've got to think about how many people are being attracted to live in this region. If we rewind pre-COVID, we weren't seeing the huge influxes of people that you're seeing today. And it shows no sign of slowing down. Now, people are being driven to live here, not just for the climate, but safety and security has become one of the biggest drivers of people to this region. They also like the sunshine, of course. For a lot of countries, it's amazing. You don't have many seasons in the year, two perhaps, if you're lucky. And the quality of education is very important, where, perhaps in people's home country, they don't have the length and breadth of choices that the UAE offers from an education perspective. You also have the attractiveness of the medical facilities on offer. In a lot of people's home country, the same level of medical care is not available to you. So there are a number of attractive opportunities being offered to people who come. And just the freedom of movement and the freedom to make investor choices, entrepreneurship in this country is a huge driver. A lot of people move here to start a business, start a new life, make a massive step forward that they wouldn't have been able to do in their home country. So it just gives you that much more opportunity. And it's a very progressive economy and a very progressive country where there is a very good can-do attitude. There's not, no, you can't, it's not possible. That conversation doesn't take place. It's more about, wow, that's a great idea. How can we do it? How can we facilitate that? And they offer so many more visa opportunities nowadays. Nomad visas, the digital ones, golden visas. It makes it a very attractive proposition. So just by the sheer number of people being attracted here is driving property prices, school prices, grocery prices, just supply and demand. And of course, inflationary pressures. The cost of items 12 months ago are not the same as they are today.
It's a good answer. I'm going to go back to the questions for you. This is Ali. I earn 11,000 dirhams a month, says Ali. Thank you for the honesty. I really want to save at least 3,000 a month, nearly 30%. But if it is just in my bank account, I know the feeling here. I'm always tempted to spend because I know I still have money. Is there a way to save or invest it that I have no way to spend it? That's kind of the pay yourself first, isn't it? Idea.
It is absolutely right, Tim. You've heard this before.
Oh, yeah.
Pay yourself first.
Yeah.
So, set up a disciplined structure that actually takes that amount of money out of your hand before it sits in your bank account. So there are a lot of options. Going back to, speak to a financial professional, somebody like myself, or somebody similar, where you can work out a structure. Is that third of your salary feasible on a continual basis without giving yourself a headache? What is the best way to save? What is your risk appetite? And how long do you think you're going to be able to save at that level for? So what are the key objectives? Let's design something around that for you. And then set up a savings plan that you can actually contribute to on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
Whether it's, in a bank savings account or an investment style account, everything is personalized to you. So work it out, but I agree, don't let it sit in your bank account.
Yeah, do something with it. And just, the thing is, it's just that the idea of just get rid of it. If it's gone, there's nothing you can do with it. And then
Absolutely.
in 10, 15 years' time, you get
It's
a surprise
suddenly,
of,
absolutely.
hold on, there's your money for your house or, whatever you're going to spend it on. Perhaps a nice McLaren. Sorry. You should have seen Michelle. If you're watching, you saw Michelle's look there. Look, let me ask you this. Difficult one, but it's an interesting question. No name. Hi, Michelle. Glad to see you on the show. I follow you on Insta.
Oh, thank you.
There you go. I saw a post about moving to or investing in Portugal. I don't know where this person is from. Current salary is over 20,000 dirhams a month. Do I stand a chance of investing or moving to Portugal? I guess we probably do.
Everybody.
Difficult to answer.
It's a difficult question to answer. Definitely reach out and we can talk about it more. But of course, in that can-do attitude, everything is possible. But is it the right move for you and your family? So, that obviously needs to be looked at. Portugal offers a number of opportunities for you to move there. Obviously, you need the right visa. So we need to look at that and design the solution for you. But of course, anything is possible.
And Portugal's pretty great as well.
The cost of living in Portugal is really attractive. And that's what's making it a go-to for a lot of people.
I got to be honest, I was thinking more pasta donata and cappuccino. But that's my level, you're at your level, so that's fine.
I don't want to take your desserts away from you, Tim.
It's nothing like a custard tart, Michelle. Let's go back to the questions. There's something I wanted to ask you here, and this is, I think, what many people kind of struggle with, and lots of people consider, maybe are considering at the moment. For lots of us, rent or mortgages are probably the single biggest kind of financial burden, really. You got to have somewhere to live. Is there an ideal percentage of income that people should ideally kind of allocate to housing? Is there a figure, kind of a ballpark figure? And what do you see in the people that you speak to with what they spend?
Look, in the traditional sense of financial planning, it's about a third for everything. So a third of your income, your household income, should be attributed towards rent, mortgage, whatever, your housing cost, a third. A third of your income should be allocated to your expenses, whatever those are, and a third is for saving. That's the ideal scenario.
Sure.
And understandably, not everybody can color within those lines. And again, that might not suit everybody, but that is the gold standard. Where you are in the UAE, for example, with rising and quite high rent and mortgage costs, and income levels perhaps are not where they need to be for a lot of people, it's a difficult one. But you need to obviously carve it out in a sustainable way that you're not going to be causing yourself hardship with those rising costs. And you need to think about it. I did a little example, if I may share that with you,
Please,
Tim.
yeah, I'd be interested.
Because everybody's talking to us, it's not just your listeners, but this is in my day-to-day life as well, is, what's driving up the cost of rent or housing? And I sat down and did a worked example to share with you today. And if we look at, a villa pre-COVID, 1.8 million, take a very standard figure for a three-bedroom villa, in a number of communities in Dubai, that was an achievable figure. If a landlord was hoping to receive an 8% ROI, which is very average for the property market, he would have been happy with 150,000 dirhams rental per year.
Right.
And that seems in proportion for a pre-COVID, even during COVID type of number. However, since COVID, those villa prices have increased exponentially. Now that 1.8 million villa is probably worth around 6 million dirhams today.
Since COVID,
Correct.
that's 4.5 years since COVID finished. Or did it finish? No, it didn't finish. But you know what I mean. The kind of
Yes.
prime COVID
Yes.
period.
Absolutely.
Wow.
It's incredible what property prices have done. Now, if we take the example of the same landlord, he's no longer happy with 150. We're talking about the same house. The house hasn't changed.
Sure.
He's no longer happy with receiving 150,000 dirhams a year rent because his ROI on his 6 million villa now is hardly going to be 2 or 3% return. He's no longer interested. That's no longer why he's a landlord. So, rental increases play a large part here because the landlord is going to demand much closer to the 8% mark that he was achieving when the same house was 1.8 million. So suddenly, the rental for the same villa today is looking like 300,000.
And that's effectively what we see.
And that's the reality, 100%, Tim, of what we see today. So a lot of people are being priced out of various communities and various parts of Dubai because of returns of investment, either on villa pricing and being able to buy and sell and making a large profit, or on the rental cost that has increased exponentially.
Anything is only worth what people are willing to pay, though, isn't it?
Correct.
That's just an old adage that still stands. So how sustainable is this situation, is my next question for you.
Supply and demand, Tim. When the demand stops or reduces, then perhaps there is going to be a more competitive property market, and perhaps the rate of growth slows. I don't think there's going to be a crash. That doesn't seem likely, but perhaps the rate of growth slows down.
Okay. There you go, Tim. It's supply and demand. Shut up. But you are absolutely right. Here's another question for you. This is Ella. Many pay rent with multiple checks. I was shouting there for some reason. I don't know why. I think it was excitement. Many pay rent with multiple checks, says Ella. Does using fewer rent checks per year, like 2 or 4, positively impact my credit score with the credit bureau compared to using the more common 4 or 6 checks, even if all are cleared on time, everything's fine, everything's paid? Any differences?
I wouldn't say so,
Yeah.
because how the credit bureau system in Dubai is set up currently, your rental is not reflected on it. It's only your credit agreements that are affected on it, and perhaps your status with your particular bank is reflected on it. So whether you're paying your rent in 1 check or 12 checks isn't going to make a difference per se to your credit score,
Mm.
because your landlord is not a credit agreement. If he was a bank and you were, just turn it around slightly, Tim, and if your landlord, just pretend, was a car and you are paying your car installments, it's much better to obviously pay each and every month on time, because if you didn't, that would be a cross against your name from the credit bureau's perspective. But your landlord is not a credit agreement, so he doesn't feature on your credit score. Where he would feature is if a check bounced, for example.
Right.
Then that would be a big black cross against your name, but that would be given from the bank side, not the landlord side. So do what is comfortable for yourself. So if it's more comfortable for you to pay your rent over 4 or 12 payments, if your landlord is willing to accept a longer payment, do that, because it makes budgeting easier.
It does, yeah. It's just so many landlords are used to the system of, you pay a year up front or 2 checks or maximum 4 very often. Next year, we're going to see it a little bit easier to pay through some of the online platforms on a monthly basis as well.
Yes,
aren't we?
that's coming,
Yeah, that
which
is
is
coming.
really exciting.
Yeah, it's a good thing. I mean, direct debit's been here for a while. It's been around, it's been available. But it's not become a thing.
Exactly, because the check system is still so widely used.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you think about it, in Western countries, checks are antiquated, and haven't been in existence for, a very long time, 10 plus years. And the banking system, direct debits, and other payment methods have really evolved in that time and lead the way. Whereas this region seems to love the check payment system, so they've really kept hold of it.
It's, I guess, as much as anything, it's a habit, isn't it? It's a thing. It's the way things have been done before. So if it ain't broke, why try and fix it? I suppose.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think there's another question in for you. We're a little bit over time, but who cares? Sometimes you just have to go over time. Oh no, that was Ella there. Let me go to another one of these questions, and I think this to me is a really important question, and it's something that comes in a lot when we talk about things like this. What's a healthy emergency fund? Because often financial advice is, make sure that you've got all your ducks in a row, essentially, and you should have an amount of money, which is an emergency fund, should you need it if something unexpected cropped up. Is it 3 months' salary you should have should it be 6 months? Or is there a figure even?
Tim, this again is a little bit like a moving target. What we express to clients that we work with is that you should have at least 3 months.
Right.
That's the minimum.
Okay.
And it doesn't necessarily need to be 3 months worth of salary. What I prefer to say to people is 3 months worth of expenses as a bare minimum.
Right.
6 months would be amazing. And sometimes you can work towards, that can be aspirational, build up towards the 6 months. But as a point of starting, 3 months worth of expenses needs to be locked down in an account, hopefully a number 2 standby account, so that you're not tempted to dip into it and spend it. And it's there in the event of emergency. And I see so many instances where this has been a real problem for a lot of people, because most people in Dubai, sadly, is 1 check away from doomsday, where they have absolutely nothing to fall back on. So if they lost their job today, how are they going to live tomorrow? That opportunity needs to be there, so that's where those 3 months worth of expenses fall in. that you can keep yourself going, you can feed your family. This is a real important topic, and I can't stress it enough, Tim.
It's a question that comes up a lot, Michelle. It does.
It does.
This is a question from Chad. It kind of relates to the previous question on credit scores. I'm so dumb. I forgot to deposit money. I love the honesty, but the essence of it is this. I forgot to deposit some money and I bounced a check. I paid it in the next day. But, it's a sensible question. Will that negatively affect my credit score, and what does it actually mean?
It depends on your bank per se. Some banks are stricter than others, but it's really not going to help your relationship with your bank because they view this very gravely. It's for them the worst possible thing, even if you did deposit the money the next day, and good on you doing that. But they see that as a red flag. It makes them incredibly uncomfortable because you have to understand that the banks have been through a lot of stresses themselves. The global financial crisis, COVID, all of these things, where they were really stress tested, where people had credit agreements and various things that they weren't able to keep up with. And it does put a lot of pressure on the capital adequacy of the banks. It does give them stress. And they want to make sure that you are a good customer. And just one bounce check could reduce. If you had an overdraft with the bank, for example, they could call that overdraft in immediately. It could give them that much discomfort. So it's worth having a word with them, making sure that they understand the circumstances, keep the dialogue open.
Couple more questions, and then we're a little bit over time, as I said. But I think this is also a really important question for you, and it's a very, very broad question. But I know you'll have a comment for sure. What are the most common budgeting and planning mistakes that you hear from? Those kinds of mistakes that end up putting you under financial pressure, but I guess kind of unnecessary financial pressure. The kind of shock things, surprise things.
It's not having that emergency fund, Tim. That's the biggest mistake
Really?
people,
Okay.
yeah, it definitely is. They're not that, any of the Facebook groups are the leading example or the pillar of the community, but you're seeing it more and more where people are reaching out to their communities and saying, I don't have money and I can't feed my family. Can somebody please help me in this shape or form? And thankfully, in those communities, people are stepping up. But also, I've noticed of late an apathy from the community where they're saying, actually, I'm having a tough time too, but I'm not reaching out for help. And this is happening too much. Therefore, I'm not going to help you. So there is really a shift happening where there's an apathy within various communities that are saying, actually, this is now being asked too much and you need to be more responsible. But I think it is the biggest problem because all you need to do is have a health scare. You lose your job, you have a health scare, something happens back home, and you're called on for emergency funds right now, today. That is sometimes the difference between, having and not having for a lot of people. So I can't stress enough, Tim, with all the listeners out there. Make it your New Year's resolution, but definitely get a plan in place to have emergency funds.
The thing is, it does happen. This is the thing. Look, it happened to me. I got sick, quite seriously ill, 5 years ago, and just as COVID was about to hit, actually, and I've had lots and lots of treatment over time, but I was never in that position where I didn't have. I had some emergency funds there. I had saved some money, and the thing about it, aside from going through treatment and everything that comes with that, and I had to cut back on work quite a lot because there were times when you couldn't do the work. But as a freelancer, I was kind of okay because I could almost pick and choose. But having it wasn't a lot of money that I had, but having some money there made a big difference in terms of the relief. It kind of it's a stress relieved, really, that that's not on your mind, that kind of immediate financial pressure. So I'm kind of echoing the sentiment. It's so important.
Absolutely, Tim. And we talk about, just from a health perspective, there are plans that you can put in place. Insurance, for example, critical illness,
True.
which is an amazing tool, and little known. So, it's only when you sit down with people like myself do we talk about these things. And it really does create the point of difference. And that's, in a way, what gave you opportunity. And that's what I say to clients that I look after. Having types of plans and insurances in place, having a good quality medical insurance is very important, because very easily with the lower plans, the cost of treatment may exceed the value available within the plan. And for a lot of people, that can be the difference between having the treatment and not having the treatment.
That's absolutely right. It's frightening that I thought I was one of those people that was like, it won't never happen to me. No, I'll be fine. It'll always be fine. And of course, you can't think like that. It's taking responsibility, isn't it? 3 more questions for you, because I'm so over time. I'm going to get sanctioned in some way. But anyway, I'm interested. How much does it cost to get financial consultation and advice from experts? First of all, no name on this. I don't earn much, but I want to be more financially literate. There you are.
Excellent. Great question. Usually, from people like myself, usually the first meeting's always free. And that's why we encourage them robustly. And they don't have to be in person. They can be done on Zoom. But it's a great opportunity to have a health check for your finances. So I couldn't encourage it more. Either sit down with somebody like myself or go to your bank and take the opportunity of taking your personal finances really seriously. And again, make it a New Year's resolution for yourself.
There are other financial advisors available, but Michele Carby does have a practice. There you go. I'm plugging your stuff as well.
Thanks,
What's wrong
Tim.
with me? Anytime. Look, last question from, I don't know if this is somebody viewing or listening, but I'm a mother of 3. I just want to get Michele's advice. Is there one expense I can let go to save? What is it? Like cheaper house or what? That's an almost impossible question to answer.
It is an impossible question without knowing what you're dealing with on a monthly basis. But of course, you can not necessarily cut out one thing, but perhaps reduce the amount you spend on a number of things. And that will have an overall benefit, because sometimes, it's not possible to cut one thing out. It may be, I don't know what your personal circumstances are, so unless we write it down, I don't know. But perhaps just take a little bit away from each thing, as opposed to trying to take out one thing.
Think through what you really need.
Absolutely.
And what you could maybe do without and not really worry about.
Pros and cons list.
But it comes back to that simple thing. When you sit down with somebody, I talk to financial advisors and people in finance quite a lot, but it's that thing of being honest and being open and saying, right, well, this is what I do. It's kind of hard to do that at first, isn't it?
It
I
is.
guess for a lot of people.
It's very brave.
It is. So if you can do that, then you're taking responsibility, and then you can look and think, oh, well, I don't really need to pay for that. Do I need that subscription? Not to take anything away, but you know what I mean.
Absolutely. And really write everything down. And it's very hard for a lot of people because, when you're spending on cards or just tapping to pay and all that, you lose sight of what you're actually paying for. And you really have to say to clients, take responsibility, keep a month's worth of receipts. And they look at you with big eyes and they think, wow, I have to keep receipts for a month?
You're a grown-up, Michele.
And you say, it will surprise you what you spend money on. And it's really just that learning experience. You just have to do it once. And, suddenly you sit with your receipts at the end of the month and you tot up all your expenses and you think, well, did I need to pay for that? It's just that realization event. And we also do it from a spending perspective. And we say, do it for a month, but, take an amount of cash out of the bank and make envelopes. It sounds very basic, but it really helps people, and break it down into weekly envelopes. And you have that money in that envelope for that week, and you cannot overspend. And it really gives people a very interesting insight into spending habits.
Yeah. And if you've got a little bit left over at the end of the week, if you can get to that point, but until you get that habit,
Exactly.
you haven't got that habit, if you know what I mean. It's one of those
Yes.
things. I had a friend who did that years ago. She was leaving, and I'm just going to save money, and I'm going to pay myself a certain amount every week. And she kind of reduced the amount as she got nearer, and she left with a lot more money than she thought she would because she'd taken those steps. It's also the kind of one disadvantage of the debit card. Debit card's so handy in so many different ways, but it's so easy just to tap, and you're not paying cash that you've taken out, so it's very easy to
Yes.
lose
Yes.
control.
It is. And
Yeah.
that's why I said you've got to go back to basics.
Always go back to basics. Caesar's following up on his call. Follow up on the iPhone worth 5,000 dirhams. Michelle, Tim, please tell me not to buy the iPhone. So I'll let you do that because you can.
Caesar, don't buy the iPhone unless you absolutely need to.
I'm listening to you. This is the last question for you, and you've mentioned New Year's resolutions a couple of times. But if you're feeling a little bit squeezed financially at the moment, practically what can you do to get things under control so that you've got a bit more security going into the new year, into 2026?
And that's circling back to something we've just spoken about, Tim. And sit down and be honest with yourself.
Right.
Take the time. It's not going to happen in 5 minutes, but make time for yourself. Sit down, work out your income. What are your compulsory monthly expenses? And be specific. Take it from your bank statements. Take it from your receipts. Don't guess. And then, work out exactly what your fixed monthly expenses are. Make your budget plan. Make sure that you've provisioned for those before anything else. And work towards your contingency financing, your emergency money. Make sure you work towards, if you don't already have it, work towards having it. So put money aside on a monthly basis to build up those cash reserves. Very important.
Okay. I said it was the last question. I lied because I just thought of something else. And you can blow your own trumpet here if you like. By the way, I like your purple glasses. I've been looking
Thanks,
at those.
Tim. I thought I'd put different ones on.
They pop. What's the best piece of advice you've given to a client to get ahead in tough times? What have you thought, I should can and bottle that?
Tim, there's so many. I've been in the industry 25 years, so you don't take anything for granted, and very often it's the small wins. But it's when you've worked with a client for a long period of time, and you've seen their children grow up from very small children to going to university, and you've had a piece in that puzzle because you've helped the parents create aspirationally that dream for their child.
Right.
You've put the building blocks in place to enable that parent to pay for that tertiary education, which has enabled that child to go to university and graduate and go on to do whatever career path they've chosen for themselves. That is hugely rewarding, Tim.
I bet it is, yeah. That's like the money shot, isn't it? That's what you do it for. Okay. Michele Carby is from the Michele Carby practice. She is let me just go back to my list here, financial expert, international wealth strategist. She advises clients on the cost of living, planning, budgeting, financial security, and long-term wealth decisions. Good to talk to you. Thanks for coming back.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks for having me.
Do appreciate it. This is Mira Business FM.